All right, everybody, welcome back to Spearfactor. Today's guest is Kristina Chang. Miss Chang, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, born and raised in the Bay Area, I moved down to San Diego after grad school for what was supposed to be a summer. I wanted to surf in warmer water just for a few months, and that was 7.5 years ago now. So it's just been a really long summer vacation. We made San Diego our permanent home. I think I decided to do that after about a year or two of I figured it's a really great place to call home and a small slice of paradise. Um, and so I grew up swimming competitively and then played water polo through college, but never really had a lot of touch points with the ocean growing up until I picked up surfing right before grad school. Surfed through grad school when I was in the Bay Area. Moved down to San Diego and just kept surfing just all the time. And then one of my buddies told me that like, oh, if you want to surf bigger waves, you really need to be able to hold your breath. So that's what really sent us into the foray of spearfishing. So we took the PFI class. My boyfriend at the time and I took it, now husband. And as everyone was going around the room talking about why they were taking the freediving class, everyone was talking about spearfishing and lobstering, and it kind of just piqued our interest. And then the person sitting next to us was also from Encinitas and told us, "Oh, by the way, you can get lobsters like right in front of your house." And I was like, "Wow, really?" And they're like, "Yeah, and the lobster cart only costs $10." And I was like, "That sounds like a fantastic deal." Um, Little did I know it's a little harder than it sounds. Just go to pick up lobster right in front of your house. But that's what kind of kickstarted it for us. We bought all the gear, and then started going out lobstering together at night. And I, the first season, I think we probably between the two of us caught like 5 or 6 legals. Like we were just every time we saw a big one, we would miss it, and we didn't know where to look for them. I mean, it was like a blind leading the blind situation, which is sort of how it went for the first year or two. This was back in 2015.
Okay.
I mostly learned how to spearfish by watching YouTube videos. And then we joined San Diego Freedivers, and that's a really awesome community of divers that we learned a ton from and made a ton of good friends with. And then continued spearfishing, and then got really into it. Really after we had boat access, we went out to Hawaii, and Daryl Wong took us out, and he is like the spirit of aloha. Like he just the greatest dude. It just took us out spearfishing, and he was like, "Man, if you guys like spearfishing, you have to have boat access." So we joined Freedom Boat Club, and then started going out every week. And that was in early 2018, and that's what really sort of kickstarted it for us of really getting into the sport, and being able to take friends out, uh, and all that stuff. And 2018 was a great year for Bluefin. So first year really spearfishing regularly, more than just a few charters and shore diving, and we were both able to plug our first bluefin, which was awesome. And then I've been doing that for the last few years, and kind of slowly picked up and gotten better and better over the years. But I just think it's such a tremendous gift to be able to go and see this whole new world underwater, pick up food, and just really enjoy something that very few people get to enjoy underwater. I think to me, spearfishing is such a special sport.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's like such a weird connection that you still have this feeling that you're a guest, but at the same time, there's like part of you that feels like you belong, or you're just a part of it, and you're trying not to take too much away and trying to embrace it all at the same time. Um, you brought up a couple of cool things, like so shooting a bluefin. It's like I say, it's like being addicted to a drug. Now you just got your fix. Now it's just you're chasing that high. It's never as good as the first one, you know. Uh, so tell me about the first time you shot your bluefin story.
So I had missed. I'd missed probably like a dozen shots before I actually made one. Every time I got down there and they started vortexing me, I got like really nervous, and I just take the first shot without actually just like pausing and lining up a proper shot and leading it. And then I was also super scared that when I shot one, that this like epic fight would ensue, and the fish would pull, and I would just like, it would pull the float down, and there would just like be line everywhere. And I think I was a little bit scared of that. So I finally connected with one, and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. And I was the first one dressed. Like when we're leaving the harbor, I got dressed and I was like, I'm gonna be the first one in, and I'm super excited. I think today's gonna be the day. So we rolled up. I think we were on our way to the 43, and we went through the North 9. And as soon as we got to the 9, we were like, oh, the tuna are like right here, right now. And so the boat dropped me off. And like first drop of the day, I dropped down to like 25 feet, lined up a shot, and then shot one. And I was like, man, I know I hit it, but the float line is slack. And I'm like, that's really bad. So I start looking around, and I'm like, there's blood everywhere. And I'm like, oh gosh, like I hit it in the spine, and it didn't even move. It was just like slowly swimming in circles. And so I just grabbed it by the tail, and that was it. It was the most anticlimactic tuna story that I've ever heard.
Those are the best kind, though.
So it fought less than I've had like 2-pound sheephead fight harder than that tuna did.
That's the way to do it, though. You got to get that good shot, or it's just a nightmare. We fought a tuna for like an hour, and drifted like 2 miles. It was it's just dangerous. You're smart though to be like, I think it's very, I respect that a lot. You're smart to be a little weary of shooting a fish that big too, because everybody like I'm surprised that nobody has died yet with the tuna like getting taken down or anything, because I mean that's just one powerful fish. Unless you spine it like you did, but and with all the line and all that, it takes a level of discipline and respect, I think, too, to like not to get yourself in a bad situation. So, no, that's really cool. And then you mentioned Daryl Wong. I've heard nothing. I've never met Daryl, but right along the same, I have friends that know him personally, and I have not heard anything bad about that man. I've heard exactly what you're saying, like the spirit of aloha, really cool ambassador of our sport, I feel like.
Yeah, he's a great ambassador of our sport in terms of teaching new people and getting people excited about the sport. And he's so skilled and so humble, and just a great host. It really, over the last like few years, when we have people passing through San Diego, to meet new divers from out of town and take people out and share that same experience that we had in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's a key thing. We were talking about that in some other places I've been, where I feel like diving's different than surfing in the sense that we open our, you know what I mean? Like we are so more welcoming to where it's like, oh, you surf, get the fuck out. Like, you know what I mean? Like diving is just so, and I'd like to keep it that way as best as possible, but I'm sure it'll eventually get like that as things get more crowded. But so you're in the Freedom Boat Club. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I have had a ton of people ask me about that, and I looked into it myself. But I thought that'd be kind of cool for people that don't have boat access, maybe to get some info on that.
Yeah, now there's 2 boat clubs in town, and they both kind of offer similar services. The only difference that I will say is that the other boat club in town lets you take the boats out at night. So if you're into lobster diving, Carefree is probably a better bet for new Spearos looking to join boat clubs. But they're both great, and they have center consoles and pilot houses. And it's just a great alternative for people who just want to dip their toe in, but don't know a lot about boats and don't want to deal with the hassle of boat ownership. That being said, I think we're in the process of buying into 50% of a boat to do longer trips. Because once you start spearfishing on the regular locally, you're always just chasing that high for something a little bit further away. So to have a boat that we can go out and spend like a day and a half, 2.5 days out at Clemente and Tanner and Cortez is it's probably the next step for us.
Well, yeah, especially this year with the Bluefin being out, that when the Bluefin were out there like 80, 100 miles Um, yeah, that's a long day.
Yeah, we did a day trip on a charter with my dad, rod and reeling out there, and it is a long day to go out 80 miles, no matter how fast that boat is.
Yeah, we did it. My boat, we were cruising about 30 knots out there, but we got, 80 miles out up early. And by the time you get on, like we found the fish, it was like 2:30. And, it's like, okay, we got to hurry up and try to shoot one before it gets too dark. I got to be back by X amount of time. I mean, I'll never do that again. I'll probably next time just go to San Clemente Island and camp out. It's just worth it the day before, I think. Um, yeah, I don't. So, speaking of San Clemente Island, have you dove there at all this year, or?
I didn't get a chance. So this summer, my ears were bugging me quite a bit. I dove too much during the early months of COVID, and by June, my ears needed a few months before lobster season. So I didn't get a chance to dive there this year, but we did a day and a half trip out there last summer with Captain Bly, and got to shoot bluefin and some big yellowtail out there. But it's an incredible experience out there. It's next level, and the bluefin are so thick out there.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned your ears. So do you wear earplugs when you surf, or?
I don't. I know I probably should, but I don't wear earplugs. My buddy's an ENT doctor, and I use every time I get out of the water, I use a mixture of distilled water and distilled vinegar to clean my ears out. And then I'm on like 2 different nasal sprays, just because my ears kind of naturally get inflamed. And that's pretty good. It allows me to dive um, pretty regularly. Like before today, I dove the last 3 straight days. So.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, we did a podcast. I did a podcast with my friend who's the ear, nose, and throat doctor as well. Because when I was diving every day for work, there was a time where it just got so bad with fungus or whatever it was in my ears, they would just swell up. Where I went and saw him, and I just had to be like super religious about wearing earplugs when I surf, and then every single time do that 50-50 mixture that you're talking about.
Oh,
It's a
you do that
lifesaver.
mixture too?
Yeah, yeah. I do actually alcohol and vinegar, mostly like vinegar though, but I know the alcohol they say can dry the ear out too much. Um, but yeah, my buddy had told me 50-50 alcohol and vinegar, and just doing it religiously was an absolute blessing. And then I needed to get out of the water for a couple of months actually and give my ears a break. And this was like, honestly, probably 7 years of diving, being on the water, 5 days a week, and probably diving 3 of those 5 days. And I was kind of an idiot. I never wore a hood either. And I think that combined with surfing after work and everything, it just kind of took a toll. But yeah, I tell everybody that, like, definitely, I hate earplugs because I like to talk to my buddies and hear everything, but I have to hear when I go other places that are maybe a little bit cleaner. Surfing the jetty is probably not the best place. I go, the tropics or something, I don't really have as many problems, and maybe because it's warm water. But yeah, here is definitely like a religious routine of 50-50 for sure.
My doctor buddy told me that when you travel, the water's typically a lot cleaner. That the water in San Diego is that clean, and that's why the vinegar is so important for us.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, I was in surfing every day in Guam and diving every day in Guam, and I never even used. I don't think I used it. I hardly used it at all. And I got back here and I surfed twice in 2 weeks, and I got an ear infection immediately. And it just really kind of reinforced my thought here is like, man, we don't really realize how dirty the water is because we're just rubbing it, so we know it. We just accept it. But wow, like it literally 2 weeks, 2 times out, and it was an ear infection. And I was doing the 50-50 too. It just was like, I got to stay out of the water and do this. I guess I didn't do it as enough as I usually do, but just that change, I think, going from clean to then dirty water was kind of a shock to the ear canal, I guess. So you surf a lot. So let's just talk about your recent trip to El Salvador. That's where you went, right?
Yeah, we hadn't been on a surf trip in months, and kind of got a little stir crazy, and decided to just kind of roll the dice with COVID and book a trip to El Salvador. That place is so crowded usually in peak season. So we thought that we booked it last minute. We knew a swell was coming. And we're able to score like great waves that were not that crowded the whole time that we were there. I wanted to go fishing, but the conditions just weren't right. And we're just so lucky in San Diego that we have so many different kinds of fishing, rod and reel and spear fishing. In so many parts of the world, all they do is troll, which to me is quite boring.
100%. Yeah. I fish to enjoy it. So it's not necessarily even catching the fish yeah, we were down in Mexico one time trolling. I ended up falling asleep, drooling all over myself. And I was like, yeah, that was not the best. I paid like $500 for this. Like, that was kind of boring. Yeah, that's a shame you hadn't get a chance to get out there and spear. I was always curious about that area. But there's there's good waves down there.
I think the fish are super thick down there. Like you can't bring spear guns with you to a lot of these countries,
right.
But a lot of people will make spear guns. But from what I understand, Central America is supposed to have fantastic spear fishing.
Yeah, I definitely know of a few spots, and then I went to Nicaragua on a surf trip and kind of did like a couple of days of just diving in between surfing, and I was surprised. Like, that's for sure. I was definitely like, I just don't think, like you're saying, I don't think it's huge down there because the tradition of just rod and reel fishing, and being is just such a normal thing that jumping in the water, and unless you had someone to really mentor you and show you, isn't something that's productive in the beginning for sure.
Especially in the beginning, it is like probably the least efficient way to procure food.
And we were talking about, I burned 5,000 calories to get a 300 calorie piece of breaded fish. Yeah, it's funny too, because like when we go offshore here, we're fishing kelp patties, and I tell everybody, well, if you put a shaft through a fish, it kind of kills the patty, but if we stay here and fish, we can limit out possibly on this patty. But so I try to explain it to people like that, but like when my son's on the boat and all that, but for me, it's not really about a quantity at all. It's just about quality and the experience of jumping in and seeing one fish and shoot it, Yeah,
I mean, just seeing the ecosystem on the patty is just an incredible experience. It's hard to describe to people unless you can show them video, especially when the water's blue. It's just, to me, it's one of the most incredible things you get to see in Southern California.
Well, it's like the most condensed version of an ecosystem, and you can see the chain like right there with the smaller bait fish, the baby yellowtails, the bigger yellowtails, the half moons, and all the other like little hitchhikers on the kelp. Yeah, it's super special. So we talk about quality here of fish, and you're quite the culinary entrepreneur, in my opinion, I guess. So what's your background as far as, have you always been into cooking or like fish and all that, or how did you get into about like really, I guess, stepping up your game as far as cooking?
So I love to cook. That was something that was with me kind of growing up. And so when I started fishing, I was like, this is so incredible. You can get the freshest, like best ingredients, and then you can kind of experiment with them. So the cooking definitely came before the spearfishing. But I think it's such a gift to be able to see your food from like physically observing it in the water to being on your plate. It's kind of like full circle spearfishing experience to me.
So what are your favorite dishes to make, and with what fish?
Oh man, that's like, I think we're so lucky because we get to eat seasonally that
Yeah.
it really changes based on the time of year. Like in the summertime, we do a lot of like seared yellowtail dishes. And then we do a lot of tuna, poke, and kind of seared dishes. We started dry aging fish this year, which for people who've never done it, I learned to do it from our mutual friend Matt, but it is awesome. It takes your fish like totally to the next level. And the best part is it can sit in your fridge for, like a few days up to 2 weeks, so you can eat it whenever you want to, so nothing gets wasted, and you don't feel like you have to eat it on a certain night. So that's been something that we really like to do for sashimi. This time of year, we eat a lot of lobster for whatever reason. Whenever people come over to the house, and we're like, oh, we can make you whatever, lobster's like always on the top of everyone's list. So we end up eating a lot of that. Like tonight, we're having 2 buddies over, and we're making lobster tikka masala, which has been a favorite this season. I looked up beef for just like regular tikka masala, and I was like, well, they do tikka masala with shrimp, so it should probably taste good with lobster. And it quickly became a household favorite. We do a stir-fried lobster with oyster sauce and ginger and scallions. That one's kind of a perennial favorite. I'm trying to think what else.
I'm gonna write that that lobster.
I'll send you the recipe, and you can put a link to it in the podcast so people can see it. But that one's awesome. We've done it with mahi as well, and it tastes really good with mahi.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, COVID, we've done a lot less takeout this year, so it's been a lot more cooking. So it's even next level. It's all the stuff that we used to like as takeout. We just had to figure out how to make on our own.
So, no, I totally can relate to that. So share with everybody what the dry aging process, because Matt showed me that, Mr. California, and my dad said, what did he say? He was like, that was the best fish I've ever had. And I was like, wow, okay, I made that, and I'm not a cook. It's like, that's pretty incredible. Could you mind elaborating a little bit on what dry aging is?
Of course. So I had originally read about it in Josh Nyland's book. I think it's called The Whole Fish Butchery. So he's like an Australian chef. But I was kind of scared to experiment with it in my own kitchen because I was honestly just scared of giving myself food poisoning.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right at all. But
like when someone's like, "Oh, would you like to come over? I have 2-week-old fish in my fridge." Most people would be like, "No, I'm all set." So it all has to do with the care of the fish, and this is where we're so lucky that we catch the fish spearfishing one by one, so you can take care of them one by one. So it starts with you bleed the fish out first, and then you cut the gills out and pull the guts out from the gills. So you gill and gut it kind of in one fell swoop, and then kind of put it in a dry it, put it on ice until you get home. And then as soon as you get home, you take a single bevel knife and you run it you run the scales like across the skin. So you're trying to take off that outer layer of scales and leave that inner layer of skin on. And you do that for wherever the skin is the thickest. So for like a calico bass, for example, that's the entire fish. And also with a calico bass, you can kind of get lazy and just use a scaler as long as you're gentle with it. With tuna, that is the middle and the top part of the fish. The belly skin is a lot thinner, so you don't have to cut into it, but you do want to try and take that outer layer of skin off. And then you make a single cut through the bottom of the belly, open the belly up, and lay it flat on a wire rack. And your fridge needs to be 35 degrees or cooler. Or if you have a beverage fridge, you can like hang it with a meat hook vertically in a beverage fridge. And then the next day I usually put on, also while you're doing all of this, I put on like latex gloves so my hands don't actually touch the fish while I'm processing it, to just minimize the amount of bacteria. The next day I'll put rubber gloves on again and just kind of pat it dry. And then after that, you just can kind of like let it sit. Yellowfin I would go yellowfin about 7 to 10 days. We just ate a bluefin that was like 12 days old, and it was perfect. But the bluefin was too big to fit in our fridge. So that we took a big loin piece, and then I used dry age bags that I bought on Amazon, and put it in the dry age bag for 12 days. And then when you cut into the loin, you take the outer layers off, and it kind of like feels like a jerky-like consistency. And then the inside is like a beautiful pink color. that's ready to cut into sashimi. We've also dry aged yellowtail, calico bass, and then we did a big 10-pound whitefish. The whitefish was incredible. If you ever catch a trophy whitefish, you should definitely dry age it for a few days.
Yeah, I gotta try that. I've never done it with whitefish, and that fish by itself is delicious enough. But yeah, I can imagine that. That'd be kind of cool. So then, when you now that you've aged it, now how do you like to prepare it?
Mostly sashimi. Like when we dry age fish, almost always we eat it as sashimi because it's so rich and condensed. And if you do cook it, which you can, and sometimes we'll sear it, you just need to be mindful of that fact that it'll cook 3 to 4 times faster because there's no moisture in the fish.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay. And then, so I guess with the dry aging, so what is the theory behind that? Like, I understand it's supposed to basically let rigor mortis take place and break down the tissue. Is that correct?
Yeah, it breaks down the tissue, especially with like bigger fish like bluefin. You can take like a tail cut, and then all that sinew just melts away and becomes like a butter-like consistency. And if you've ever had fresh bluefin tail, it's filled with a lot of sinew that's not very palatable. And then it also lets the flavor really develop. So it's like having dry aged beef. It has that like umami mushroom flavor. The fish develops a flavor that's like really rich and not fishy after dry aging. Like the shocking thing for us was the first time we did it, we did a whole yellowfin. It was like maybe 10 pounds. And I thought for sure after 2 or 3 days, the fish would start to smell. It never started to smell. As long as when you open up that belly, you clean out every single little piece of bloodline and guts, the fish just doesn't smell. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and you kind of want to do that anyways for the limit the bacteria and all that, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah. Wow. So before you were doing this dry aging stuff, what were you typically cooking your fish with? Like, how did you typically just fry it, or?
So I think for us, like if you fish every week, and I'm sure you're in the same boat, you get pretty bored of eating fish that's cooked with lemon and butter. Like you get pretty sick of it pretty soon.
Absolutely.
And so for us, it's just about trying new recipes and different cuisines, and like thinking about like how people around the world eat fish, and different ways that you can try stuff. You can only have so many fish taco nights before your friends don't want to come over for fish tacos anymore. And so for us, it's just about experimenting. We do sashimi for a lot of fish, but it's fun to get really creative and think about different cuisines, like whether it's tikka masala or like a Thai curry. We do a lot of Mexican food, and we just kind of try to mix it up. That's the main thing is like I look at all the ways that I've had fish in restaurants, and try to mimic and copy those. And I think being a part of San Diego Freedivers, that whole community is super passionate about cooking and making the best use out of your catch, that I get inspired by what other folks cook as well.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, never let anything go to waste, and um, you can never. I mean, I learned that too, traveling, just all the different ways, like the dry aging thing, like you said, a 2-week-old fish, that would never ever occur to me of trying to eat that and think it would be delicious. But yeah, what a cool idea. Just keep an open mind. That's a good point to all the younger guys out there too. Keep an open mind and pay attention, see what people are doing. You might like it. So now we're moving in from summer to winter here. What is your dive like? You're going to lobster season now. You're like full blown lobster season mode, or do you switch over to any other like reef fish or things like that?
So I think lobster diving was our first foray into the sport, and to this day is still my favorite type of diving. I think there are other, like I like to mix it up and not eat the same fish over and over again, or the same thing over and over again. But in terms of level of enjoyment, I get the most enjoyment out of lobster diving. I think it's just so fun getting to be in the ocean at night. Is something that not a lot of people get to experience. Like last night, I was out diving with a few buddies, and within 5 minutes, like a 6-foot leopard shark swam right up to me, and it kind of scared me at first. But then I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And it stuck with me for 5 or 10 minutes. And I was like, just even if you were just snorkeling, like getting to swim with a shark that large in the middle of the night is such a special experience. But that being said, when the viz is good in the wintertime, my favorite thing to do is probably to hit the islands. It's the islands on like a day where the visibility is like 50 or 60 feet is probably one of my favorite kinds of diving to do. And my husband he's more of a fair weather diver, and that's probably one of his favorites as well, is if you can hit the islands with 50 to 60 feet of visibility.
The islands are a pretty special place too. But you mentioned the shark thing at night, and I remember the first time I had a situation like that, and I didn't even know it was next to me. I was looking under a crack, and I saw my buddy shine a light at me, and I see him like flashing at me, like, "Hey, come on, come on!" I'm like, "What?" Signaling to come up. He's like, "Did you see that?" It's like, "No, man." He's like, "It was beautiful." I was like, "What?" He's like, "There was this huge shark right next to you." I was like, "What the fuck? Are you serious?" I'm like, "Why are we on the surface talking about it? Let's get out of here." And I come to find out later on, I was thinking like it was a big great white that like buzzed me or something, but it ended up being a 7 gill in La Jolla, which is now like off limits where we were. But yeah, I think there's something about it too, because it's so quiet, and you see that transition from the nocturnal animals coming out, like, and the diurnal animals going to sleep and all that stuff, or whatever they're doing. You see like this whole transition. That's why I was like hunting at like at dusk, where it just starts to settle down and you can see things change over, and it's like the predators get a little more aggressive and less shy, and like white sea bass. You ever had white sea bass swim up to you at night?
To this day, I've never seen a white sea bass in the water. I caught my first one rod and reel this summer,
Uh-huh.
and my husband speared them, but I don't know. I think I'm too loud in the water.
It's
That or
just
bad luck.
you know what it is? It's just consistency. Well, yeah, it's funny. It's hard to go swim around in murky water and cold murky water if like offshore it's going off offshore, or there's like the tuna, but yeah, it's like one of those things I don't know. You either love it or you absolutely hate it. And I did it for a long time, and I got super burned out on it. And then I think it was this year or last year, I was like, okay, I got to at least check this off my bucket list here. It's been a long, long time. So yeah, the white sea bass thing.
I think for me, it's that time of year where the season kind of peaks is sort of the end of lobster season. The island visibility is really good, and so you can go play around in the murk for 6 hours and maybe catch a fish, or you can kind of go and dive at the islands and have like a wonderful day free diving, and pretty much guarantee that you're going to pick off a few fish.
Some calico, yeah.
So that's a tough trade-off. But once I caught my first one rod and reel, I was like, oh, next winter I'm definitely going to put in my time to catch one. It's just, I think I've been out to try to catch them like twice, and so it's not really surprising that I haven't seen one.
Yeah, it's a commit. You have to just be like, okay, this is what I am doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So, any trips planned for the future?
Trying to think on my bucket list. I think I'd love to do. So I think I'm like food motivated. It's kind of like this circular thing with spearfishing. I'll try a fish and then I'm like, wow, I got to catch that. And so 2 weeks ago I had my first taste of fresh cabiria. So I think high on the bucket list. And everyone is like, oh, it's so good. And I'm like, it's a whitefish. Like, how much better could it be compared to all the other whitefish that I've eaten? And it really is as good as they say it is. And so I think a Bay of LA trip for us is on the horizon, hopefully in the next 6 months or so. And then seeing all the videos of people diving there, it's kind of a special thing. So that's pretty high on the bucket list for trips to do next.
Yeah, that fish was actually a major component in motivating my wife to let us purchase the home. down in Baja because what she had it at a friend's restaurant, Blue Water Seafoods here at Ocean Beach, and she's like, "You can get this?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's like 6-8 hours south. I can go get it." She's like, "Oh, okay, you need to do that." So we did it, and then it's just been like now it's just kind of part of our routine of life. Is go down there, dive, bring back some fish, and then when we run out, just go for another trip. But yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that one. That stuff's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I was really blown away by exactly how good it was. It's so flaky and so buttery. We had family
How do you cook
visiting
it?
last weekend. So
Yeah.
the first time I had it, I was over at a buddy's house and he did a fish fry. And it was just fantastic. And then I coated it in coconut flour, cornstarch, salt, and sugar, and did a shallow fry in avocado oil. So you got that like salty and sweet, and that like fried crispiness on the outside. It was good. I'd highly recommend that.
That sounds incredible. Yeah. I think I'll be doing that tomorrow. Well, cool. Yeah, so Baja, Bay of LA, and then anywhere else you'd want to go?
For us, it's really fun. Like, I get going to far off places and spearfishing. We haven't done a lot of spearfishing travel trips. We spearfished a little bit on our honeymoon in outer French Polynesia. And that was really cool, but there's so many fish there. You shoot like one or two fish and then you're like, I'm not gonna shoot. I don't want to like just wreck the ecosystem. So it ends up being
Right.
more of a snorkeling day after you figure out what you want to eat. Um, but part of the fun is like having it in our freezer and being able to cook it anytime we want to, or having fresh fish all the time. But I'd love to go down to Mag Bay or Punta Mita and try to get a wahoo. Wahoo's on the bucket list for sure. So I think those Bay of LA and a trip where we can plug some wahoo and bring it home are probably the
Yeah.
top two on the bucket list.
Yeah, there you go. That's when you were in the Tahiti, the outer islands of French Polynesia, were you at the Tumotus or?
We were on Rangiroa,
Oh,
and
wow.
so it was like pretty remote, and there were like just giant fish that had never seen people before. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. In like shallow water, you'd see like 20, 30 pound triggerfish, which I had no need for a 20-pound fish, so we passed on it and shot video of it. But it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's always a toss-up with some of those remote areas because I was talking to Mark Healy about it, and he was saying like you go to some of these remote areas where you think you're just going to be just sheltered, like just fish everywhere, and it's decimated, and then you go to another place, like a lot of those islands near Asia, I guess. I know they got hit real hard with the fleets, the fishing fleets, and they just get decimated. And it's crazy because you'd think they're in the middle of nowhere. But then as you go a little bit more towards French Polynesia and back to the Eastern Pacific, I guess, it's a little bit better off. But yeah, I've heard similar stories like that too, where my buddy was like, every hole I looked in, there was a big grouper. He's like, every single hole, you know. And then the shark thing, where there's just healthy ecosystems, so there's tons of sharks. So they're like, yeah, I guess you shoot one fish and then you just move, you know.
You shoot one fish, you put it in the boat, and then you kind of snorkel around. It ends up being more of a free diving day than a spearfishing day when you're in places where the fish are that thick. But that's
Yeah.
totally fine. I really enjoy the free diving aspect of our sport as well.
Do you practice freediving exclusively, or?
No, I'm super bad about that. I always I like if I go out
Me
and I'm like,
too.
oh, in the remote possibility I see something, I have to bring a gun. And I think once you bring a gun, then it doesn't qualify as free diving anymore. I did go out Sunday and I was like, I don't really like I'll go out with a gun oftentimes and say like I feel like this for dinner, and if I don't see exactly what I'm looking for, I'm not going to shoot anything. And so that happens to us a bunch. I think over time you become more and more selective about the fish you like to eat, and there are very few cases where I'll shoot a fish that is not something that I want to eat just for sport. That's not really what we do.
No, I thank you for saying that. That's so great because, I mean, I, I I try to call myself like the least productive spearfisherman ever. Just because it's just more about being in the water, and I just want that one big guy that I have in mind, and then that is it. And if I don't see him, then I don't see him. I got to spend a whole day swimming through a kelp forest. It's pretty awesome. Um, and if I got a freezer full of fish, there's no reason for me to be pulling the trigger on anything if I don't need it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I think the one species that's never really safe when I'm around is lobster. Like I did listen to a podcast where you're like, I only take what I eat. The problem
Yeah.
is we have I have like a big family that I think loves everyone loves lobster, and then my company every year we do a big lobster cookout. Not this year, but typically we do like a big lobster cookout, and there's like 30 of us, so the lobsters get eaten pretty quickly.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, for me, I got so jaded because I was diving every day on the water. So whenever I needed lobster, I just grab it because I just knew tomorrow if we're gonna go, I could grab it. Now, now I think the kids are kind of over the lobster so much, and then, but the friends aren't like you're saying. Yeah, I definitely have the friends hit me up all the time. So, well, I want to be conscious of your time, and I know it's 5:30, and I know you got to run, but
Yeah, I probably have another like 15 minutes.
okay, cool. Yeah. Well, let's get into surfing. Where have you gone on a surf trip?
Oh man, surfing. We're so lucky that both my husband and I love to surf. So most of our travel has to do with surfing. We've done El Salvador a few times, but you really have to time it properly. Last minute trip or off season to kind of avoid the crowds these days. We do a lot of Mexico trips. So we've done a few trips to Salina Cruz.
Oh, nice.
I have a very generous husband who is goofy, but lets us go to Right Point Breaks a lot. So
That's the place to do it too, down there.
I'm so lucky. It was we've had some pretty great trips down there, and the outfitters are amazing, and the food in Oaxaca is just unbelievable. So like as we travel to these places, I get super inspired to come back and like cook these things. So that's one of the places where Al Pastor is like super strong. Like just traveling through Mexico. So learned how to make Al Pastor while I was down there, and then we did a lot of like mahi and yellowtail al pastor this summer, which is it's pretty easy. You just buy achiote paste. Like I bought it on Amazon. Orange juice, cumin, sugar, salt, a few other spices, and then you just marinate it and put it on the Traeger, and it's pretty fantastic. That's another summertime favorite for tacos. Sidetracked on your question. Where else have we been? New Zealand. New Zealand's awesome. We didn't get to spearfish. It was just the condition. We had our gear, but the conditions just weren't right. I'd love to go back there and plug like a giant yellowtail. Just go out for a few days and wait till we saw a giant one and shoot one that was like 100 pounds. I can't imagine how hard they would fight, but I think it'd just be super fun.
Yeah, I think, it's funny because I got really into free diving. It sounds like the exact same way you were. I was trying to, surf a lot of big waves at the time and just trying to get my breath hold better and more comfortable in the water. And I had grown up like three prong and, but with, then it was like when the surf's flat, it's like I got to train. And then training just turned into spearfishing. And the whole goal is just to spend as much time in the water as possible. But yeah, so it's a funny story. But you travel these places with a surfboard, and then when the surf's flat, it's like, what are you going to do? When I went to Tahiti, I fell, excuse me, and tore the ligaments in my ankle like the very first day. And so I was like, well, I'm here. So I just literally swam around with a pole spear, no fins because I couldn't kick, and just holding onto the reef, just like, playing in the water. And it was still just as epic. I mean, granted, like to surf, but I think that's the beauty of being a well-rounded person. And then you learn so much too. Like, so this is interesting. How do you think that your surfing has helped you with your diving?
I think they're like just being in the time in the water is just time in the water is probably the best way to put it. Like I was out surfing today in Del Mar, and I dove there on Monday. I was looking down at the reef, and I'm like, yeah, I know this is exactly where the set wave's going to break, because I can look down and I see the structure, and I know approximately where I am and what it looks like underneath me. And so I think it's just kind of being well-rounded in that way and understanding kind of how the ocean works and how the ocean moves. Diving is one of those things where you just have to be in really good shape to do it, especially shore diving. I think now that I have a boat, I forget how much work shore diving is. I did it the last few days just because I was like tight on time. If you have like a two or 3 hour window, you're not gonna like drive from North County down all the way down to San Diego to just go out for like an hour. It's just easy just to jump out in front of the house. But man, shore diving is a lot of exercise. I forgot. Respect to all those people out there who shore dive all the time. It's work.
Oh yeah, and then I can't imagine what it'd be like to take up spearfishing, and your first introduction to spearfishing is shore diving on like a larger day, and the guy. I feel like with the surfing aspect, like that has taught me, timing and everything. Like you can shore dive in just about anything, 10-foot surf, and if you know how to surf, like you can time it and have no problems. But then you watch other people, and it's an absolute yard sale. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
yeah, and you see big waves. There's a reef too. That's the other thing. Like you were saying about reading the bottom, looking at the bottom, you know where the wave's going to break, and vice versa. When you see like a big day and you're seeing Misto peaks out there, there's probably a reef that could be worth checking out.
Exactly, and that's part of the fun of, like, we are so blessed in San Diego that we have all these different kinds of ecosystems to go check out and shore dive. Like, so much of the time when the visibility is good, it's worth just kicking out there to a new spot that you've never been, just to see what's out there, even if you don't come home with anything. That's like the only way to really find new spots. And I'm not a big believer in like secret spots. Like, I love bringing my buddies out and stuff like that. But I mean, it's still a lot of work. Like, that's my thing is, and I think that's why the community is so strong versus surfing. Surfing is like the polar opposite from a community perspective than spearfishing is. People are always like, oh, come out spearfishing with me. And that's something that's one of my favorite aspects of the sport is the community aspect.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. That's the one thing that I really thoroughly enjoy about it, is that you've got friends all over the world, and you can, I guess maybe, I don't know how that happened. Maybe it's because in order to really do the diving aspect, you should have a buddy. So you kind of force everybody to be cool with each other. Rather than when you go surf, sometimes you just want to zone out. It's a very individual kind of activity, almost like a meditation thing. And you don't want to be bothered with 30 people around you.
Yeah, I think I was listening to your last podcast with Eric Anderson, and that's one of the ways I feel like I've been super blessed in this sport, is learning alongside my husband, and always having that fixed dive partner is something that we're just so blessed with, and then picking up friends along the way who spearfish and share our passion for the ocean. You end up with only like a few people that you're like, okay, we swim at about the same speed. We actually trust each other. We're really good at like just going one up, one down, and being really vigilant, and being concerned, you always put safety first. It's a pretty kind of special type of friendship as well. It's fun.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. It's true. It's weird. It's just, how some people have friends that they're closer with than others because you click better. It's like we do that, but just in diving. It's like you can just tell, oh, okay, they're on the same page I am. This is going to be a good day. I don't have to worry about where they are, you know. Well, I know you got to run, so I just wanted to thank you again for of scheduling this with us over and over again, as I'm canceling, you're canceling. But I love the fact what you said before is that we're canceling all the time because we're actually out doing what we love to do, surf and dive and all of that. That's like first priority. Other than being a father and a husband, but yeah, definitely that's up there. So thank you so much, and I wish you maybe should do some dives sometime soon, or go to Baja or something. Plan a trip to Baja with everybody, Matthew and everybody. But thank you for being on the show.
That would be killer. Yeah, we're definitely down for a Baja trip, so let me know, and hopefully we'll see you in the water and we'll dive together soon. That would be super fun since we're local.
Yeah, awesome. I'll see you at maybe one of the freediving meetings too.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much, Brett.
Okay. Bye.